Oh, can you hear me? Erdi, hello?
Hello, Mark.
Hi. Hi. Are you new here? Have you joined our meetings before?
I think for this meeting is the first meeting that I'm from Open Nebula
Okay.
Systems. I
Okay.
checked the calendar and appeared and it went, let's see.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for more people to join.
Okay.
Other, like if there aren't enough today, this is kind of a strange time of the year because a lot of people seem to be away or taking holidays or whatever. I don't know. Hi, Abdullah. Abdullah is a colleague of mine.
Okay.
All right,
Yes,
so
yes.
I'm going to start. Yeah, very, very sparse attendance today, but I'm going to give it a couple of more minutes and then just want to talk through a few things.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Mark.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
I'm all right, thanks. Hey, Jordi.
Okay.
Hello.
Um, um, Abdullah, while we're waiting for people to join, I haven't told Davis this yet, and I do not know if I even will, but I'm going to be in London first week of May.
Awesome. Finally, we're
Yeah.
meeting face to face.
I might, yeah. It's like, well, it's gonna be like working time away from me. I'm like it's not like I'm not taking time off. Why am I screen
Oh,
sharing paused?
just let me know how you want to go about
Yeah, we
catching up.
can definitely meet up. Grab a pint. All right, so this is what I want to talk to today. Why did it say my screen sharing is paused? Like I didn't ask it to pause my screen sharing. I want to share. I don't know what's going on. And it's I'll try again. Okay, how about now? Can you see me? You should be able to see my screen now. And then I
It's
should be able to.
still loading. Oh, there we
Yes,
go.
now yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna pick up the chat. So these are the meeting minutes where you can add yourselves. And separately, here is the and this is our latest document. And I'm going to once again put that in the chat. So this is just going through real quick the meeting minutes. These are the kinds of things I'm hoping to discuss today. If we end up not making like having a lot of people on, then I'll just walk through them, solicit your feedback, and then I'm going to move this to the mailing list or to the to talk to other group chairs because so we completed a fairly major piece of work. And this is this document. It's a TW profile for replica workloads. So it is a detailed design for how to achieve workload identity for workloads that share the same credentials because they are effectively twins. So we call them replicas. And there is a definition for that. So we basically say, let's see, what do we see? We see that replica workloads where does it say? I have to say replica because there is a definition. Oh, the workloads that share code, security, and configuration, other compliance relevant attributes such as hardware location. So long as they're basically indistinguishable from each other from the point of view of the relying party, or functionally indistinguishable.
Is this on the likes as in Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, you see that in containers. You're going to see that in lambdas, right?
Yep.
Well, you ultimately This is what I want to add, actually. I want to say workloads that are that are functionally indistinguishable. Indistinguishable from the point of view of their clients and their relying parties. Such workloads. Okay, that would be a better definition, right? So they're replicas not because of all these other things that they are called security configuration, other things. The important part is when they talk to a relying party, it doesn't matter which one of them talks to the relying party, it's still that same identity. So this is a very, very important subset, probably a very large subset of workloads you're going to see inside clouds. Hank, did you join?
Yeah, I joined. I'm about to leave Geneva in order to work for my institute a few hours at home.
I see.
But,
okay. Well, thank you for joining. I'm very happy you're here. Okay.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
what I want to talk about today is now that we finished this document, I saw your edit. I changed the edit a little bit, but it was a good one, where you basically described the key store. And I just changed it slightly. You can see I've neglected to keep change tracking on. But this document is effectively finished. And what I want to talk about is the next thing that we're going to do in SIG. So while I was waiting for people to join, is I basically want to basically make a statement that the SIG is done with this Google document. Okay. Now, it's not an IETF draft in its current form, but it is a document that we can sort of sign off, finalize, say, okay, we're locking version 1.0. If we're going to make any changes to it, it will now require the next version so that at least we have it, maybe I can like save it as a PDF, I can send it around, that sort of thing. Now we can talk about the next steps. What do we do with this, our version 1? I have a few ideas. So I would like to now take it and present it to the TAC. Basically say, look, we completed our work. And the purpose of presenting it to the TAC would be that, well, for one, it's words on paper. I have a colleague at JP Morgan Chase who is interested in prototyping this work, but it's probably going to be done in the context of our, bespoke environment. We have our own CI/CD pipelines, we have our own identity management system, we have our own sort of, architecture for how we deploy workloads, and we do want to deploy it inside the bank, but this is, ideally we can make something that works cross-platform and it works for everyone. But that is not going to be our first priority. Just as far as how the bank I work for spends money. However, when I present it to the TAC, I want to solicit their feedback, right? Maybe they have some important changes they want to make. The other thing I want to discuss there is, that there are members of the consortium who are in position to implement it for their clouds. So, Google, Microsoft, and I would like to see, what would it take for other members of the consortium to take this draft and perhaps run with it, and so that we can start deploying confidential workloads, be it containers, lambdas, or whatever in every cloud, and have this as a backbone. That would be, a measurable win for the industry as I see it. And again, if they cannot implement it as is, and there are some reasonable reasons why they want to make some changes, so be it, because again, the goal is not to preserve the text like the Bible. The goal is to create an interoperable implementation that people can use, right? Then there are going to be deployment blockers, and I know about that already. And deployment blockers are things that, effectively make deployment difficult. And I already spoke about some of them in this group, and I'm going to be making presentations. So I'm on the calendar for that station SIG for April 21st. And I will talk about the fact that the workloads and the hardware it's Conway's law, right? They're managed by different organizations, and these organizations frequently don't even talk to each other. So when it comes to how do we assess whether the workload is meeting expectations, not just for trustworthy workload identity, but for every attested workload. We need to understand how to deal with the fact that what constitutes acceptable workload and what constitutes acceptable hardware are decided by two different teams. All right, so then, and this is something I know is in Abdullah's wheelhouse, since he and I are colleagues. We did talk in the SIG about the provenance of workloads, and I want to examine if we can have a discussion about, well, now that we can ascertain that this workload is what it is, we want to also understand what the provenance of it, what the bill of material is, and what sort of the end-to-end of provenance looks like. And it may be that we perform a periodic audit to make sure that our workloads have appropriate build up, or like I don't want to play through the scenarios there. I just know that one of the key attributes of attestation is you cannot lie about what your workload is. As a result, you cannot really lie about what your workload composition is. And that opens up the possibility for supply chain security that before confidential computing was at best a best effort, right? So those are the main ones. I added one just as
So, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I may, can I do a little bit of a screen share since you have already touched on supply chain security?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me 1 second. How to do this? Give me 1 second.
Okay, while you're doing that, Hank, we should work with you on how we're going to take this to the ATF, because Vienna is now not too far away. I would like to have a slot at the Vienna ATF, maybe in the RATS working group, to talk about this. I do not know again, or maybe it should be Whimsy, or I do not know, like however you feel is best, or maybe an interim meeting.
Yeah, so I don't know if there will be an interim meeting. The interim meeting would be best, I think, to prepare for Vienna. So, but I don't know if the chairs have enough need for it. Second thing is, Whimsy tries not to talk about evidence, and yeah, so it seems to be rats. We introduce, so we have a better understanding of key material, key purpose, and involved roles now. We've trimmed it down to the two phases, basically, and so it's pretty comprehensive. We introduce, of course, policy, which is out of scope of the REDS charter right now. But that can be an informational part of a normative document. It just has to be highlighted as such. So I think converting this to an internet draft should be possible. And but what you highlighted first is this. Let's float it in tech and with stakeholders like, I don't know, Azure and maybe some Huawei people. They're also pretty interested in the identifier realm, which is funny because it's also an interesting topic for them in the agentic AI world because they run those agents in confidential computing environments. So yeah, I would assume that and the problems to create identifiers for them, identities. So yeah, I would say float first. We should plan, but we should parallelize, not sequence, serialize. And so therefore, after Easter, I would say a week after Easter holidays, I can start to put this into an ID format.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. But let me just say this, and then we'll switch over to Abdullah's presentation. There was just kind of a side effect on the GRC sig. There was a discussion about, do we keep the glossary? That's completely unrelated to any of this. But and then Nikolai Paladi, who basically said, in order for confidential computing to become adopted, it needs to explain what problems it solves and it needs to have a glossary. But what got my attention there is confidential computing is still struggling with adoption. And there are multiple factors for this. Like performance currently is the biggest because we need TDISP, and TDISP is not yet in broad deployment. So we see literally an order of magnitude drop for network and storage intensive workloads because you're basically there is no crypto offload for confidential computing, and it's just killing things. That's going to get fixed. But from my perch, TDISP is an inevitability. It's just going to happen because of its huge performance implications. But the next one in line for adoption of confidential computing is it. I really do believe, and it's in one of our founding documents here, the chart or whatever, the workload identity is the main selling point of confidential computing because it gives you identity-based zero trust, and the fact that it protects data in use is actually a side effect of that. And if an organization such as ours cares very much about zero trust because we have an enormous and sprawling network with few network boundaries, we're like have a flat network. I don't think I'm disclosing any confidential information here. That's like a very well known that's how our network is architected, which means that we need identity-based segmentation. And if we can have confidential computing that's performant at scale as our North Star, and that's my job, then we need workload identity. And I'm sure there are multiple organizations in that
Yeah,
space.
and it's like the topic of agentic AI, ephemeral, short-lived things, identity is not making this easier. And then workloads are composites, so there are a lot of identity documents, maybe creating the actual identity of the workload or whatever we. So it's a tough match, to be honest. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Abdullah, let's switch over to your screen share. The floor is yours now.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, what you're seeing.
Can you zoom in a little bit, please?
Sorry?
Can you zoom in, please?
Let's see if I can zoom in without losing quality.
Perfect.
Yeah, no.
You cannot?
Sorry about that. No, it's not working very well. I'll try to do my best for the next time because I couldn't kind of like bring it out properly.
Fine. That's fine.
Anyway, so yeah. What I was gonna say is that I created this graph, Venn diagram, if you will, to represent how, regardless of the domain or asset type, whether it's software, data, or hardware, right? When we speak about supply chain security, there are 5 pillars for this kind of like emerging property to be capitalized. Those are policy and governance, provenance, integrity, transparency, and dependency management. Now, I think, Mark, Manu's pinging you. Or is that me?
Sorry,
Manu.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Abdullah. I was just
you're good.
the chat. Hey guys, sorry I was late, but just wanted to let you know, Mark, you can zoom on the viewer side, lower right corner. Yep. Sorry, go ahead, Abdullah.
I'm the one presenting the screen, Manu. That's why I was asking. So bottom line is that we need all of this, right? Like if we get provenance just like that, then we cannot actually do an integrity check. And can the claim of that kind of like provenance be independently verified? Like if we don't have all of this, we are not going to get it right. That's kind of like the bottom line. And I don't know how this kind of like speaks to kind of like the requirements, Mark, that you were alluding to, because I just heard, I think, who was it, Hank, that's mentioned that we were not doing policy and governance. But if we do not have these kind of like as part of the equation, I don't think that we're going to get it correctly. That's long story
I
short.
totally agree. With we, I don't mean us. I mean the IETF working group has policy specifications out of scope, but we could talk about policy that is informational. That is not a problem, but we can't specify any.
That's fair. I mean, we can still speak from it like agnostically, right? So
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, back to you. Manu, Jordi, any questions?
I just wanted to add one thing. I think it's a very useful diagram that you have there, Abdullah. The other piece that we see in our discussions with NATO and others for traceability across supply chains is the need for confidentiality of all that information. So it's you want provenance and traceability, but that information about provenance and traceability should only be available to the people who should have access, who have a need to know. So you need confidentiality and privacy at the same time that you have cryptographic provenance and traceability, which is necessary because all information, I mean, that kind of information, if it gets leaked in some way, is very, very detrimental when you have confidential supply chains across critical industries, and you guys are definitely in there. So it's not just the internal use case, it's
something that you're going to add to your diagram, or
so I think that speaks to basically policy and governance, right? Around transparency, because transparency enables traceability. Like if we cannot verify the claims, right, in a transparency log for starters, then we cannot actually trace things. And
but
policy and governance,
there is targeted transparency. It's like need to know transparency.
No, that's fair, but I think that's around the policy and governance around all of this. That's why it's kind of like encompassing the whole Venn diagram intersections, right?
Yeah. And by the way, Hank, when you say, if I heard you correctly, that the RATS working group doesn't really deal in policy and governance, well, maybe that's a mistake, because if something is not governable, then chances are it's going to have a really hard time being deployed in the real world. Maybe we should start thinking about, at least the key management, the key properties there.
Once upon a time, we also already had a recharter. It was only about evidence and attestation results. Now it's also about reference values and endorsements. And the only thing that is still not in charter scope is policy. And that is a big topic, because we don't want to reinvent Rego, which, for example, would be a specification for the OPA Rego language, which would be a specification for policy. So I think that's the point. We don't need a standard way to represent policy, because there already exist things that do that in JSON format, I assume. You could, for example, say, hey, this is our draft to do it in CBORD, so it's smaller. So that will be a specification about policy, and that is not okay. But I think giving Rego examples and show how this would work is fine, as long as they are not normative telling you how to do things.
Yeah. I'm just thinking out loud here, right? But when I talk about the Conway law, this is the, much less theoretical aspect of it. So what I mean by that is it's a very real world concern that, as I said, I work for a bank, and I may need to be deploying workloads into a public cloud. And in that arrangement, the policy around what constitutes acceptable hardware and acceptable hardware configuration is something that I let the cloud provider decide. And I may have a contractual obligation with them that they, keep things up to date and don't introduce, deliberate bugs or whatever, or inform me of breaches, things like that. But ultimately, the decision at any instance of this, is this, legit hardware or not, is out of my hands. And conversely, I don't want them to decide on what constitutes acceptable workload, right? And that is maybe it's very tactical and it's maybe very situation specific or scenario specific, but don't underestimate how important something like this is for making sure this is something that we can deploy. So I do not know what rats can say about it. My concern, my fear is that by saying nothing, they are leaving this area underspecified, and as a result, it hurts the adoption of the technology.
Understood. So again, it is possible to recharter with careful wording. If you want to maybe have a look at the Reds charter in the moment, and see what the style is, and if you can find, I want to say 1, 2, 3 sentences that would add policy, extend the scope of policy in the realm that you find necessary, then it's entirely possible that the chairs agree. But on the other hand, the chairs try to empty the adopted item list in RATs and add a charter increase would create more influx. And so at least the feeling would be there, I guess. So so I'm not entirely sure how realistic rechartering is at this moment right now. But again,
Right.
also having a draft and then talking about stuff does not mean that until the working group last call it will work. So I would go with non-normative language and examples first, and then discuss what could be normative here. Would it hurt to put something policy related into normative text? How much would that violate the charter? Would we need to edit the charter? And our new AD, Chris Ignacio from MIT, I guess, would know. And so he would, and the chairs would come to an agreement or a disagreement. I don't know. We have to give an example, right? So like an artifact to test the charter with. And that is why bringing it forward first, and then again go with non-normative text and examples, and say, hey, and this is missing. We would like to phrase this as a normative language.
So what's the right tactic for doing that? Like, is it something that there is an interim meeting and we put like an informational draft in it, or like how does this even get voiced? Is it some sort of a mailing list email that people discuss? Like again, how do you see this going?
Yeah, I
or happening?
I would publish a draft that is rather unproblematic and non-contentious with the charter, and then would create a GitHub version that would you could see a delta with, and say, okay, this would introduce some normative language around policy. That is a problem right now. Could we talk about this? Then we already have something in, and it's visible, and people understand what we want to achieve, and then and I'm not entirely sure if it's necessary to recharter. And again, I don't know what you need to specify here. Why not start with an email on the email list? Because then it's an empty air. You just want to respec the charter. Why? You need a good reason. Because I want to write something. So probably the answer would be then write it first and show us. Because it's very hard to discuss a charter change without a draft.
Right, of course. Well, so Hank, how about like maybe you and I, or maybe I'll email you and also CC the TWI mailing list, so we can at least start that discussion in that contained forum. Before we go involve the rats.
That makes a lot of sense, I think. And maybe we can talk also to some of the attestation SIG people. And again,
that is coming. The attestation SIG talk is coming again. That's April 21st.
Wonderful.
So I will be talking specifically about attestation SIG. In my opinion, has spent many months on things like attested TLS relay and replay attacks that are of next to zero value in real world deployments. Like in my world.
Some are being moderated now.
And
it's a strong moderation level reached. And I've seen them cut off by chairs repeatedly in the past now in the attestation SIG.
Right. So which means that there'll be more oxygen for things that will be more important for deployability. Okay. Let's see. So, okay.
I have
So
to
the
drop off in like 8 minutes because I have to get ready for a plane
right,
and all again. Work from my institute at home and
right.
because of this obligation day.
Yeah. So I would say, Abdullah, your picture that you just presented uh, probably is something that we should probably have in our Google Drive folder for TWI for just maybe just render it and upload it there.
Yep.
And I would like to have a conversation, sort of at least try to feel around the edges of this. So, what are the different ways in which the workload identity and provenance intersect? And we talked about several ways of doing it. So, for instance, we can basically say, because every credential is uniquely identified, right? So there is like there could be a unique identifier on the certificate, or it could be a unique hash of the credential, like in a number of ways. From there, it ought to be possible to check with the credential issuer and say, so what's behind the curtain? Right, that could be one, and that doesn't really necessarily lend itself to real-time validation of bills of materials, or maybe it does, but at least there is a breadcrumb one can follow, and we can have a separate document that basically says this is all the ways in which you can figure out, at least assess, act on, audit, etc. What are all the operations, the provenance of a workload. And what are the scenarios there? I think it would be good to at least enumerate them, and then we can see over time how this can be integrated with all the other protocols and flows, that result. Because I think it's long term, it's worth exploring, but it needs to be introduced into the broader context in a way that doesn't break or slow anyone down or causes friction or incompatibility, and that can be a challenge. But I think it's still something that's worth pursuing, because eventually, like, you can't kick that can down the road indefinitely. It keeps, you keep stumbling over it. So, okay, I think that's really all we can do at the moment. I do not want to start on another standard for workload, credential issuance, until we have some traction on this. So we have the standard now, or at least not the standard. We have this proposal. We should probably see if people want to implement it, if they have any feedback on it. We need to somehow introduce it to ITF with Hank's help. And again, Hank, maybe you and I can have an email exchange where I just need to understand more precisely what our Vienna strategy there is.
Yeah. Also, maybe we should talk again. You were able to bring either, I think it was Peter Kesselman here once. Yeah, we should talk with him how much he thinks this clashes with Whimsy, or how well they
I
can
can tell you
coexist.
that one I have an answer for. I know you need to draw, but I'll explain. So Whimsy architecture has received a pull request. So Joe Salloway did it. He was in Seattle, so he and I were able to meet. And the Whimsy architecture in the document is now separating credential acquisition and provisioning from credential
the
usage.
4 drafts. Yes,
So they did that, and that is effectively basically saying, Whimsy is going to be primarily focused on the business of how credentials are used, how they work with reverse proxies, how they work between workloads, how they work like all of this other, like once a credential is issued, what it is that you do with it. And that is not our business. Our business here is provisioning and acquisition of credential. And now, because the Whimsy architecture has now separated the two, we are no longer in conflict with them. It is possible now to do workload credentials for confidential workloads. It's by just changing the acquisition mechanism.
Perfect. Good. So this is part of the plan. I love it. Okay.
Yeah. That was a wart that they have now removed, which is really, really nice. But again, we still need to influence. Ultimately, until the code is written that implements this proposal, all we have is words on paper, and that is what I want to move past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
All right. Okay. So next week I am not here. If you guys want to get together and move this forward, please. I'm not required. All I do is hold the mic most of the time. But in 2 weeks I'm back, and I would like to have a discussion on the mailing list, ideally, about what it is that we will be discussing in 2 weeks' time. Again, having finished this proposal, I would like to move to the next steps. I would like to move to how do we talk to the TAC, how we talk to Station SIG, how we talk to the ITF, various working groups, etc. So that has got to be. And perhaps, Abdullah, if in 2 weeks you want to put together some kind of a proposal for us to start talking about provenance, that would be a good forum while everything else is being slow or done in other forums for the next few weeks.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine, Mark. I'll follow up with you anyway.
Yeah, and we can talk offline as well. All right, with that, I think we are done for today. I will now render our document as a PDF, and I will email it to various forums, basically soliciting their feedback and inputs. And that's where the discussion is going to move for the next level.
Perfect. And if we get some positive reinforcement, then we can start on the. Again, we can finalize the draft. I will start creating a raw draft in between. I think also in 2 weeks. Okay.
Right. And Hank, I will email you separately about how to get the Vienna ITF involvement started, whatever that looks like, because I would like to be there in person in July. And I just want to, if I'm presenting something, I would like to, or you, or it doesn't matter who, I'd like to get that ball rolling now. So there is no rush.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Okay,
yeah,
thanks
bye-bye.
everyone.
All right, bye-bye.
Goodbye.